What if I told you the richest musician on earth did not become rich from music alone? Music opened the door, but the billions arrived through champagne, cosmetics, headphones, and one decision every superstar faces: keep the rights or take the check. We are counting down 10 fortunes, from number 10 to a mystery number 1. And the winner is not even close. First, a reality check. Celebrity net worth is an estimate, not an audited bank statement. Private companies, taxes, debt, property, and music rights can move these numbers by hundreds of millions. We used current Forbes and Sunday Times estimates, checked them against transactions and company reporting, and converted British figures at the official July exchange rate. Any music versus business split is our evidence-based model, not a number the artist published. At number 10, Elton John, about $643 million. He began as Reginald Dwight, a shy piano prodigy from suburban London. The transformation came when he met lyricist Bernie Taupin. Taupin wrote the words. Elton built the melodies, the costumes, and one of the most durable live acts in history. The obvious money is the catalog. The less obvious engine is repetition at scale, radio, streaming, licensing, and a farewell tour that refused to behave like a farewell. Farewell Yellow Brick Road grossed $939 million. Gross is not profit, but it shows the size of the machine. Today, the road schedule is lighter, while royalties and entertainment ventures keep working. His visible luxuries include homes, fashion, and a major photography collection. But one of his largest current outflows is philanthropy. The 2026 Sunday Times giving list tracked roughly £37 million directed toward HIV/AIDS, medical, and humanitarian causes. The lesson? He did not retire the catalog when he retired the tour. Number 9 is the quiet outlier. Andrew Lloyd Webber, about $692 million. He is not a stadium pop star. He is something potentially more powerful, a composer whose songs arrive with buildings, casts, tickets, licensing fees, and decades of revivals attached. Then came Jesus Christ Superstar, Evita, Cats, and the Phantom of the Opera. The breakthrough was not only writing hits, it was building the really useful group to control how they are produced and licensed around the world. That turns a song into infrastructure. A pop single may peak and disappear. A musical can reopen in another city, in another language, with another cast, and start the revenue cycle again. His wealth has fallen from earlier peaks as theater economics changed and assets moved, which is exactly why old billion-dollar claims are misleading. Today, the stronger estimate is £516 million. He continues to develop productions, collect art, and fund arts education through his foundation. The mistake he avoided was giving away the whole machine after writing the score. At number 8, Madonna, $850 million. She arrived in New York with ambition, discipline, and no intention of letting one genre or one decade define her. The music made her famous. Reinvention made the fame renewable. Forbes estimates that her tours have grossed about $1.4 billion across her career. Again, that is box office, not take-home income. But it explains why she belongs above artists with more recent streaming hits. Madonna built an audience willing to buy the next version of Madonna: pop provocateur, fashion force, filmmaker, and global touring brand. Her celebration tour proved the back catalog was still a live business, culminating in a vast free concert at Copacabana Beach. Away from the stage, wealth is stored in property and art. Her philanthropy includes long-running work in Malawi. The trap she avoided was nostalgia. She sells history as an event happening now. If this breakdown is already changing how you think about music money, hit like. It tells us to make more documentaries that follow the business behind the spotlight. Number 7. Tied at $1 billion. Dr. Dre in Compton, he learned how a record is built from the control room outward. NWA made him famous. Death Row made him powerful. Aftermath made him an owner and helped launch careers, including Eminem and 50 Cent. But the move that changed the scale was not another album. It was a pair of headphones. Dre and Jimmy Iovine understood that listeners did not only want sound, they wanted studio credibility they could wear. Beats turned a producer's authority into a mass-market product. In 2014, Apple agreed to buy Beats Music and Beats Electronics for $3 billion in cash and stock. That was the leap from royalties to equity. Dre did not receive the entire purchase price, but the deal created a base that investing and Aftermath could compound. Today, his portfolio includes music rights, production, property, and newer consumer ventures. The mistake he avoided was licensing his name for a fee. He took ownership. Number 6, also tied at $1 billion, is Beyoncé. From Houston and Destiny's Child, her career became a masterclass in vertical integration. Most performers hire separate companies to manage, film, and package a tour. Beyoncé built Parkwood Entertainment to control more of that system. The result is tickets, merchandise, film, streaming, sponsorship, and a catalog that gains value with every cultural event. The 2023 Renaissance World Tour grossed nearly $600 million. Then the Cowboy Carter Tour passed $400 million in ticket sales, with Forbes estimating another $50 million in merchandise. Because she owns and controls so much of the machine, a larger share can move toward her companies after costs. There are outside ventures, Secret Hair Care, Sir Davis Whiskey, fashion, and advertising. But Forbes says most of her fortune still comes from music. Her visible spending includes one of America's most expensive modern homes, while Bay Good supports scholarships, small businesses, and disaster response. Her avoided mistake was outsourcing the valuable layers around the performance. Number 5. In the same $1 billion tie, Rihanna. The teenager from Barbados became a global hitmaker, then stopped releasing albums at the usual pace. Her last studio album arrived in 2016. The fortune survived because its engine moved from playlists to shelves. Fenty Beauty solved an inclusivity problem. Mainstream makeup ignored too many skin tones. Rihanna supplied cultural trust. LVMH supplied global retail. Reuters reported roughly $450 million in 2024 net sales and a possible $1 to $2 billion valuation for Fenty Beauty in 2025. Rihanna's stake, plus Savage X Fenty and other ventures, now outweighs the music catalog in most serious models. That is why our estimated split is roughly 10% music, 90% business, and other assets. Her lifestyle mixes high fashion, property, family, and selective performances. Through the Clara Lionel Foundation, she funds climate resilience, emergency response, health, and education. She avoided assuming fame itself was the product. She used fame to launch a product people genuinely needed. Number 4. Bruce Springsteen, about $1.2 billion. The man who wrote about factories, highways, and working-class pressure became wealthy by doing something remarkably patient. He held on to his work for almost 50 years. Springsteen came from Freehold, New Jersey, and turned Born to Run into a national breakthrough. The fortune grew through 140 million records, marathon tours, Broadway, and a catalog investors began treating like a long-duration asset. In 2021, Sony acquired his entire recorded and songwriting catalogs. The reported price was roughly $500 to $550 million. Then he kept touring. In 2023 alone, the tour sold more than 1.6 million tickets and generated about $380 million in gross revenue. Springsteen has pushed back on the billionaire label, a reminder that models can overstate what is spendable. His image remains closer to a New Jersey horse farm than a floating palace, and he supports veterans, food banks, and local causes. The mistake he avoided: selling before the market understood the song's value. We are about to enter the top 3. Before we do, which fortune surprised you most so far? Put the name and the business move in the comments. Number 3. Paul McCartney, about $1.35 billion individually. The 2026 Sunday Times figure is higher, about $1.41 billion, but includes his wife, Nancy Chevelle. That is rich list uncertainty in real time. McCartney grew up in post-war Liverpool, formed the most commercially important songwriting partnership in pop, and then learned a brutal ownership lesson when the Beatles' Northern Songs catalog moved beyond his control. He responded by building MPL Communications and buying publishing. Add Beatles and solo royalties, tours, reissues, licensing, and property, and the result is compounding, not one spectacular exit. A song from the 1960s can stream today, sell a box set tomorrow, and return in a film years later. McCartney still performs, refreshing demand across the catalog. His lifestyle is unusually continuity-driven: long-held homes, farms, family, art, and music making rather than changing fleets of trophies. He supports animal welfare and humanitarian causes. The mistake he did not repeat was treating publishing like boring paperwork. Number 2. Taylor Swift, $2 billion, and the richest female musician in history by the current Forbes estimate. She arrived in Nashville as a teenage songwriter, understood fan intimacy before social media departments did, and built an audience that treats each album as a world to enter. But the pivotal wealth story is ownership. When the masters of her first 6 albums were sold without her control, she re-recorded them. Taylor's version redirected attention and royalties toward recordings she owned, weakened the old masters, and taught millions what ownership means. Then came the Eras Tour, more than $2 billion in ticket sales. She bypassed studios for the concert film, negotiating directly with theaters. In 2025, she bought back the original masters, unifying the catalog. Forbes attributes most of her fortune to royalties, touring, and music rights, with roughly $100 million in real estate. Our split is 95% music-linked. Her spending includes homes, private travel, a huge touring payroll, and bonuses to the people who moved the show. She also makes major donations to food banks and disaster relief. The mistake she avoided was treating a contract dispute as only a loss. She turned it into new inventory, new fan participation, and eventually full ownership. Number 1. Jay-Z, $2.8 billion. $800 million ahead of Taylor Swift, and nearly 3 times the fortunes tied at $1 billion. He grew up in Brooklyn's Marcy houses and co-founded Rockefeller when major labels refused his terms. Reasonable Doubt became both an album and a declaration of ownership. Music created attention and credibility. Then it became seed capital. Rocawear turned identity into clothing and sold for a reported $204 million. Block paid $297 million for most of Tidal. Armand de Brignac turned a gold bottle into a luxury signal, and LVMH bought 50%. Bacardi later acquired most of his Duce stake. Add Roc Nation, a catalog, investments, art, and real estate, and the pattern is obvious. Jay-Z moves from endorsement to ownership, then to partnership with a much larger institution. That explains the lifestyle, museum-grade art, rare watches, and, with Beyoncé, a $200 million Malibu home designed by Tadao Ando. Some luxuries are also stores of value. His philanthropy includes criminal justice reform, scholarships, disaster response, and the Sean Carter Foundation. Our model puts only about 20% of the fortune in music-linked assets and roughly 80% in businesses and other holdings. Music did not make Jay-Z irrelevant to this ranking. It gave him the cultural leverage to build everything else. So the richest musician did become rich because of music, just not from music alone. The pattern is ownership. Own the master. Own the publishing. Own the company around the tour. Own equity in the product your audience trusts you to understand. Taylor Swift shows music can still build $2 billion. Rihanna and Dr. Dre turn taste into products. Springsteen and McCartney show patience compounding a catalog. Jay-Z shows the difference between being paid for influence and owning what influence creates. Which strategy was smartest? Tell us below. And if you enjoy documentaries like this, subscribe to AB Visual Studio. The next story is already taking shape.